Norse navigators used a crystal called a sunstone to sail through fog and total cloud cover when every other civilization was completely blind at sea. No compass, no GPS, no landmarks, just a rock. And for centuries, historians thought this was mythology, a Viking legend, something written in sagas to make their sailors sound superhuman. Then, in 2013, scientists found one on a 16th century shipwreck at the bottom of the English Channel. And when they tested it, it worked exactly the way the sagas described. This is the real story of how Vikings conquered the most dangerous ocean on Earth using a navigation system that modern science has only recently been able to explain.
Before we talk about the crystal, you need to understand what Norse sailors were actually dealing with. The North Atlantic is brutal. We're talking about a stretch of ocean where storms appear without warning. Fog rolls in so thick you cannot see the bow of your own ship, and the sky stays overcast for days, sometimes weeks at a time. Every navigator in the medieval world used the sun or stars to figure out where they were. The Arabs had the astrolabe. The Chinese developed the magnetic compass around 200 BC. The Europeans, for most of their early seafaring history, simply stayed close to the coast. But the Vikings went the other direction. Literally, they sailed west into open ocean. No coastline, no stars visible through clouds, no sun, just gray. They reached Iceland by 870 AD, Greenland by 985 AD, and then, a full 500 years before Christopher Columbus, they landed in North America. Leif Eriksson stepped onto the shores of a place they called Vinland, which we now know was Newfoundland, Canada, around 1000 AD. The question historians couldn't answer for centuries was simple. How?
The answer was hiding in plain sight, in the Viking sagas. The Norse sagas are some of the most detailed historical records from the medieval period. Written accounts of real voyages, real people, real decisions made at sea. And scattered throughout them is a reference to something called a solarstein, the sunstone. One saga, King Olaf's saga, written around the 13th century, describes a moment where King Olaf asks a navigator named Sigurd to find the sun on a cloudy day. Sigurd holds up the sunstone, looks through it, and points directly to the sun's location, hidden behind thick clouds. Historians for a long time treated this as metaphor, poetic language, the kind of exaggeration you expect from oral tradition turned into text. Then physicists took a second look. The sunstone is a real mineral. The leading candidate is Iceland spar, a transparent, colorless form of calcite crystal that's actually found abundantly in Iceland. And it has a property called birefringence, which means it splits incoming light into two beams. Now here's the key. Sunlight, when it passes through the atmosphere, becomes polarized. The light waves align in a specific pattern depending on where the sun is located, even when the sun itself is hidden. This happens whether you can see the sun or not. Clouds don't stop it, fog barely affects it.
For a long time, there was a frustrating gap in the evidence. No sunstone had ever been found at an actual Viking site. Then in 2013, archaeologists analyzing a wreck from an Elizabethan-era English warship, the Alderney, which sank in 1592 near the Channel Islands, found a small rectangular block of Iceland spar crystal sitting near the ship's navigational instruments. This was not a Viking ship. It was a 16th century English vessel. But the discovery proved two critical things. First, navigators were actively using this technology well into the age of the magnetic compass. Second, it suggests the practice was widespread enough across Northern European seafaring cultures that it survived and was used long after the Viking Age ended. The magnetic compass, by the way, had limitations that the sunstone didn't. Early compasses were unreliable at high latitudes, exactly where the Vikings were sailing. Magnetic deviation near the poles creates compass errors that could be catastrophic.
A polarized light navigator didn't have that problem. It wasn't relying on the Earth's magnetic field. It was reading the sky.
The sunstone was only one piece of a larger system. Viking navigators, called lesagemen, literally root-sayers, were among the most sophisticated practical scientists of the medieval world. They used a wooden bearing dial, a sundial-like disc that, combined with a gnomon, could track the sun's position and latitude. When used alongside the sunstone to locate the sun's bearing on cloudy days, this gave them a way to maintain east-west heading with remarkable precision. They practiced latitude sailing, keeping the sun, or North Star, at a consistent angle to stay on a fixed line of latitude. If you're sailing from Norway to Greenland, you go to about 61 degrees north, then sail due west, hold your latitude, and you hit land. They also read the ocean itself, sea surface temperature changes, ocean current direction, the color of the water, the behavior of wildlife. Certain birds stay close to specific coastlines. Whales and seals congregate near feeding grounds, and those feeding grounds are often near land. And they remembered everything. Viking navigation was largely oral. Route knowledge was memorized, recited, passed from experienced sailors to apprentices. The sagas weren't just stories. They were operational knowledge encoded in narrative form, so it could survive without writing. Think about what the Vikings achieved with this toolkit. They were crossing 1,500 miles of open Atlantic, from Norway to Greenland, as early as the late 900s AD. The magnetic compass didn't reach northern Europe until the 12th century. Formal celestial navigation charts weren't developed in Europe until the 15th century. The Vikings were doing this 400 to 500 years ahead of the navigational technology that everyone assumes made ocean exploration possible. And they were doing it with a crystal that cost nothing to obtain, required no maintenance, never broke, never needed calibration, and used the fundamental physics of light in the atmosphere. The irony is that modern science, with satellites, spectrometers, and computational models, has confirmed what a Viking navigator understood through observation and practice 1,000 years ago. In 2013, when the Alderney shipwreck crystal was confirmed, researchers weren't just finding a navigational tool. They were validating a tradition that had been dismissed as legend for centuries. The Vikings didn't stumble onto North America by accident. They didn't get lucky with the weather. They had a system, one built from mineralogy, astronomy, oceanography, biology, and an intimate generational knowledge of how the natural world works. They weren't just warriors. They were scientists who happened to carry axes. And the next time you look up at an overcast sky and think the sun is gone, it isn't. You just don't have the rock yet. If this changes how you think about what primitive civilizations were actually capable of, drop a comment below. And if you want more lost technologies that modern science has had to catch up to, subscribe. There are a lot more where this one came from.